Hey everyone, welcome back. In last week's video, I shared my very opinionated opinions about the incident that took place at the 2022 Oscars. You know, Slapgate. Actually, my video wasn't necessarily about the slap, but more about whether or not freedom of speech is a blessing or a curse. So, if you haven't checked out that video, I'd encourage you to go and have a look. It's really good. But that got me scuttling down another rabbit hole of thought. Why do people say and do the things that they say and do? What sits behind that? Why do I react in the way that I do? So, in today's video, we're going to be talking about unconscious bias. For those new to my channel, I'm Natasha from Bright Sprout Consulting, and here on YouTube and in real life, my goal is to help you succeed in the world of work and just in life. That sounds like something you're interested to know more about? Then subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so you can be updated of any new videos. If you like what you hear and you think others could benefit from it too, then give this video a thumbs up. It really does help grow my channel. Let's jump straight in. What is unconscious bias, you may ask? Well, to answer that question, let me ask you a few questions. Number one. Do you believe that the kids these days know more about technology and how to use technology than anyone over the age of 45?
On the line.
Number two. I had to tell you, you have to send your kids to a daycare that has only male teachers. What would you think? And number three, do you think it's disrespectful to question the authority of someone in power?
You won't dare interrupt me once more. Take away this man!
Thank you very much. Touch me on my studio. Touch me on my studio.
I touch you on your studio.
Touch me on my...
What was your gut telling you when I asked you those three questions? Because in essence, that reaction is driven out of your unconscious biases. I like to use the iceberg model when I think about things like this. What sits above the surface are those things we are conscious about, those opinions and feelings that we are okay that other people know about, because we openly display it. What sits below the surface is the other things that drive a lot of our behavior. And there is a significant amount of things that sit below the surface that drive how we react in situations. It is our gut feelings that sit there. So let me tell you a bit of a story about when I realized that unconscious bias is a real thing. Let me just start by saying that I see myself as a feminist, someone that believes that men and women should be treated equally, and that should be the only thing we consider when it comes to gender. It's what I believe about myself. And it's mostly driven by the fact that I grew up in what some would term a non-traditional family. The household tasks were split evenly between my parents. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that my dad was my primary caregiver, which at the time was unheard of. So, I decided in preparation for today's video, I would do an unconscious bias test around gender to just confirm what I already thought about myself, which was that I believe that women should be given the same opportunities to go and seek a career than a man, and that men should have the same opportunities to be caregivers and homemakers. So off I go, do the test, and I see the results, and I think to myself, it's gonna say exactly what I believe. Much to my dismay and horror, it did not. Turns out, I have a strong association that men should be the ones driving their careers and women should be more closely associated with family. That was unexpected. I was shooketh, to say the least. But the more I reflected on it, the more I realized that that's true, that is what I associate with the gender roles. Because even though I grew up in a family where the roles were mixed up and muddled, I knew they were mixed up and muddled. It's how I positioned it. If you think back to how I explained the story, I said that I grew up in a non-traditional family. So in my mind, as much as it pains me to say it, I have associated women with family and men with career. The more I reflected on it, the more I realized that I see it playing out in my daily life, at home and at work. As an example, in my family, my husband does a lot. He contributes equally as much as I do in the family. However, this doesn't stop me from feeling guilty about not doing it all. So when he goes and he makes a joke about the fact that I haven't made supper every night this week, I feel a sense of guilt that I didn't make supper every night this week, because in my mind, I think that that's my role. When it's not, because his food is good. It's yummy. Ask the kids. I also see it playing out in my career. When I had my kids, I physically took my foot off my career pedal and took a back step, essentially. I didn't push as aggressively for the career I knew I wanted, because I now had kids that I had to look after. I share this purely because I wanted to illustrate how that can play out in your daily life. How your unconscious biases could impact how you see the world and how you react in the world. I could tell you about all the different kinds of unconscious biases that exist, but I'm not. If you want that, please just pop a note in the comments section and I'll get right on it. But I wanted to share some examples rather about how it can play out so that we raise the awareness of what unconscious bias can look like in real life. As I said before, we all have our own biases that impact our lives in one way or another. None of us can escape. So how do we manage it? My first tip is get to know what your biases are. Like me, you could do a test, and I'll pop a link to the test I did in the description box. Or you could just sit back and reflect. I've done this too, as well. Also, sit back, think about things like how you were raised, what was your family structure like, what have been your interactions in the past with people of a different race, of a different age, of a different sexual orientation. Think about those things so that you know where your biases stem from. Being aware of your biases allows you the room to acknowledge that maybe your opinions could be flawed, that it could be based on something that isn't the truth about that individual. My second tip is particularly hard for me because I think I got a bit of the crazy gene where you act first and maybe think about it later. Be that as it may. My second tip is to not react impulsively to situations. Take a step back before you act. Give yourself the space and time to think about things before you react in a situation. I don't know if you know this, but the brain is an amazing machine that's designed for efficiency. So it looks for shortcuts in our mind. If you already have a pre-existing bias, it will automatically take the path of least resistance. That's why avoiding a quick snap decision about something helps, because it helps you to pull the brain back to think about a situation first before reacting. I'll give you a practical example. I worked with a manager once who had worked his way up the corporate ladder in quite a hard, harsh way. He worked really hard, but he was put into positions where he wasn't necessarily the most qualified person. And it served him well because he worked really hard and he got to where he needed to be. This influenced his thinking though when it came to recruitment. So whenever we recruited for a position in his team, he would always gravitate towards the person that had the least amount of experience. With the idea that, he could do it, this person could as well. Every time he would go this route. And despite the overwhelming evidence that it didn't always work out, because it worked out maybe once out of the 10 times he appointed someone, he would still follow this path of choosing the least experienced and qualified person for the job. It cost the company lots of time, effort, and money because those individuals either left because they couldn't handle the pressure, or they were exited from the company because they weren't performing. My final tip is to be open to learning. Open to questioning your own assumptions and opinions about other people and what drives them. This allows you to make new shortcuts in your brain and leaves you open to unpacking what your unconscious biases are. That's it. We've come to the end of our video today. I hope you learned something new about yourself. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Join me next week. I'll be talking about a few of the unconscious biases that have held me back in my life and career. Looking forward to seeing you then. As mentioned earlier, I'm a career and life coach. If you want to build your confidence and you're just looking for someone to walk that path with you, then reach out. All of my details will be in the description box below.